Hello guys, welcome to James Recaps. Today we are going to talk about a horror episode released in 2011 named Wrong Number. The story starts with high school students Stephanie and Taylor, who are as arrogant as they are rude and as badass as they are mean, as they don't look like anyone else except themselves. They always keep troubling others, showing humiliation to others, and finding faults in them. This is their only work. Especially Stephanie, who is the meanest and very proud of her beauty and money. She has no manners and no cares. On the other hand, Taylor just keeps following her to look cool. One day, when they were passing through the corridor, they bumped into a new student, Adriana. Even though it was Stephanie's fault, because of her that poor girl's brand new phone got broken, still Stephanie doesn't apologize. On the contrary, she starts shouting at her. She thought that, like everyone else, she too would not have the guts to mess with Stephanie, but this girl was different. She does not say anything, but does not even pay attention to her. She simply ignores her. In the apartment where Stephanie lives alone, her neighbor is an old lady named Miss B. She is very sick. She cannot breathe normally. She always has to carry an oxygen cylinder with her. Her bedtime is exactly 9 p.m. every night, but Stephanie has to play loud music every day at the same time. Her sleep gets disturbed by the sound. Complaining again and again is of no use. This girl does not listen to anyone. Even when Miss B shouts and requests her to lower the volume, she makes fun of her and increases the volume even more. One day, Miss B cannot tolerate it anymore and comes to her door and knocks on it. In a very angry tone, she shouts at her and asks her to lower the volume. She starts scolding them. Stephanie also does not keep quiet and starts arguing with her usual cynical temperament. "This is my house and I will do whatever I want. Who are you to stop me?" Miss B gets more angry with her rudeness and makes a very mysterious face and says, "I know very well what to do with girls like you." Her expression was so much that Stephanie gets a little scared and tries to close the door on her face, but Miss B does not let this happen. I do not know where that old lady gets so much strength from, but she holds the door tightly, and when Stephanie goes to turn the doorknob, she gets a strong shock for a second. Then she sees that her doorknob has turned into ice. The situation had become so terrible that she gets stunned for a few seconds. Taylor somehow closes the door and the doorknob also closes. By then, everything was normal. Stephanie could not understand whether she was taking Luzin every day, but there were blisters on her hand, which meant that there was some truth in what she saw. That old lady must have done something. Stephanie decides that she will definitely take revenge. She sits down immediately and starts calling Miss B's house. She continuously makes prank calls and starts harassing her with strange things. She does not stop until Miss B gets frustrated and starts shouting at her. By doing all this, Stephanie was enjoying a strange kind of pleasure. She was feeling the happiness of victory, but she had no idea that she would have to pay a huge price for this happiness. The next day, when she is about to leave for school, she sees a lot of people in the corridor, some paramedics and some from the Mercs. They also had a stretcher on which they were bringing a dead body from inside. Definitely, it was Miss B's body because no one else lives there. Taylor feels very bad. She was very ill last night, and on top of that, they troubled her so much. She must have suffered a lot. Stephanie does not even think of such a thing. She was absolutely stone-hearted at such a moment. Even then, she was busy checking out a boy and was worried whether her hair looked good or not. In fact, she bent over Miss B's dead body and started flirting with the boy. At this point, Taylor also realized how bad she was, but she could not say anything. The next day in school, Stephanie again starts following Adriana. She does not know why she was so persistent in troubling others. She could not find peace without Adriana. She used to make mean comments about her online. She used to click her weird pictures and make funny jokes and circulate them in her friend group. Adriana was fed up with her antics. She tried to avoid her as much as possible, but Stephanie's habits did not change. Another incident happened the same day. Stephanie started getting strange messages from an unknown number. Someone was warning her to improve herself, and the tone was exactly like Miss B. Stephanie also realizes this, but she ignores it. No dead person can send her a message. Someone must be pranking her. So she replies to that number at that very moment, but the message does not get sent. When she comes home, she keeps getting similar messages, which made her feel that whoever it is able to see her. Stephanie checks outside her house, but she doesn't see anyone like that. Finally, she thinks that this is the work of that boy from the market to whom she had given her number. He must be flirting with her. She tells the same to Taylor, but does anyone flirt in this language? She doesn't think so. The very next moment, Stephanie gets a call from the same number. On receiving the call, strange sounds start to be heard as if someone was smelling something very angry. But don't these girls understand that? And when Stephanie calls back, the phone rings from the nearby apartment, that is, Miss B's room, which was impossible because no one lives there. Stephanie disconnects the call out of fear. But now, calls started coming continuously from that side, and not only on her phone but also on Taylor's phone. On receiving the call, she hears the sound of someone screaming very loudly. Stephanie had to be sure that these calls were coming from that room, so she called back, but this time instead of the phone ringing, someone banged on the wall, and that too on the same wall. Now, after this, there was no scope of doubt that there was someone there, but who? Stephanie decides to find out. She had a spare key to Miss B's apartment. When he went out of town for a few days years ago, he had given this key to Stephanie's dad so that he could take care of Miss B's cat. That key is still in the same house. They can get in with that key. Taylor doesn't like this idea at all. She doesn't want to go, but Steph is scared to go alone, so she forcefully takes her, and the sight they see inside the house is quite weird. Miss B's house was filled with thousands of strange things. Books, and other things. The pile of dust had become so big that there was no space to walk on it. On top of that, there were candles in every room. They didn't know why. They should have put them off when the paramedics arrived, or someone lit them after they left. And Stephanie also wanted to find out if the call was really coming from there, so she asked Taylor to call that number. And as soon as she did so, Miss B's phone started ringing. But how? Her connection was already broken. After that, Stephanie's eyes fall on Miss B's cupboard, and when she opens it, she finds a lot of random things, but they were kept as if there was some exhibition. One of those things was Stephanie's hair clip. Miss B has no idea how it came to her, and she tries to take it out of the bottle, but the lid was very tightly closed, so she picks up the bottle. As soon as she hears the sound of coughing again, both of them run away from that house. But the next morning, Stephanie was back to her usual form and started making faces at Adriana. But before she could tease her again, messages start coming on her phone again, that too with pictures, in which in the first photo, there was someone's eye, and in the second, Stephanie herself looked as if someone was trying to tell her that someone was keeping an eye on her. Stephanie was about to threaten her with police when suddenly a huge spider comes out of her phone, due to which Stephanie throws away her phone. She was pretty sure all this is the work of that Miss B. Even after death, she is not leaving them alone. She must have put some curse on them. So she decides that she will take help from Adriana because from her dressing, she always felt that Adriana is a witch. Stephanie directly goes and talks to her, openly calls her a weird witch, and then goes and asks for a protection spell from her. Even Taylor was surprised by her audacity, but not Adriana because nothing else could be expected from Stephanie. She says that she is not a witch, but her uncle's grandfather's cousin was. If Steph insists so much, then she can help, but it will take time. Till then, she will have to be very careful. Adriana agrees. But as they leave the library, another incident occurs. Someone calls, asking for Stephanie, and when she picks up the receiver, she hears the same old Miss B's voice, which sounds even creepier than before. This time, she doesn't issue a warning, but instead delivers a sentence, explaining in full detail how she plans to tear her to pieces the next day at Wolfson. This brings Stephanie back to her senses. After school ends that day, she heads over to Uncle Constantine's house with Taylor. She doesn't have to explain much. He recognizes the danger instantly because he already sees a dark shadow surrounding her, trying to overpower her. This was definitely a curse, and a powerful one at that. When he learns that the one who cast this curse is already dead, his face grows even paler, as it means the curse's effect is doubled. He wasn't sure whether his protection could save Stephanie, but as promised, he offers a cure. No spell, but rather a herb called hellebore lips, which helps ward off evil spirits. It's a kind of dried leaf with a terrible smell, but if Stephanie wants to save her life, she must spread these leaves around her bed while she sleeps. She will only be safe within that circle. With these words, Stephanie finally relaxes a bit. She finally had some hope and was even willing to pay Constantine any price for it. But being the kind-hearted person he was, he asked for nothing, saying, "A friend of Adriana is also my friend, and her enemies are my enemies too. How can I take anything from you?" Stephanie wastes no time. She returns home with the herbs and arranges them in a circle around her bed. For extra safety, she even asks Taylor to stay over that night. Taylor, also frightened, agrees. In conversation, she asks Stephanie if she really thinks the herbs will protect them. Stephanie's demeanor changes immediately, and she rudely says that Taylor should mind her own business. She then adds that Adriana better hope those herbs work. Otherwise, if she finds out her uncle tricked them and gave them fake herbs, he won't be spared. Perhaps this was also what the higher powers believed, as even with all the protection, Stephanie couldn't stop Miss B, who was already in the room with them, in that bottle Stephanie herself had taken from her house. We see that the lid, which she couldn't open despite all her efforts, magically opens on its own, and Miss B's spirit emerges. This time, her only goal was to punish this insolent girl. She had given enough warnings, frightened and threatened her in every possible way. She had even made it clear that she was watching her, that she was keeping track of all her deeds. Stephanie had several chances to change, but not even a pinch of change came over her. She was so self-absorbed that she couldn't distinguish right from wrong and probably never would. So there was no point in giving her another chance. But Stephanie had no sense of her mistakes, nor was she ready to give up. As soon as she sees Miss B, she runs to the bathroom to hide, and Taylor follows. But when she realizes it's a dead end and they'll only be trapped there, she starts yelling at Taylor as if it was her decision to come there. Meanwhile, Miss B also reaches the bathroom door. She can't enter because the door is closed, but she arranges things outside to ensure they can't stay inside for long. She sends them a gift, a swarm of spiders, which both girls are terrified of. The number and size of the spiders keep increasing. Towels and dresses inside the bathroom stop them for a while, but Stephanie knows they can't hold them off for long. They have to get out somehow, but how? Miss B is waiting outside. Stephanie comes up with a plan. She tells Taylor to open the door on her count, while she stands behind the door with a curtain in hand. As soon as Taylor opens the door, Miss B tries to come in, but Stephanie jumps on her with the curtain, trying to cover her and somehow reach the main door. She manages to reach the door, but just before she can step out, Miss B stops her. She uses her magical powers to lock the door and then asks them to apologize and promise never to bother anyone again, to try to be better people from now on. Taylor agrees, apologizes, and promises. But Stephanie still shows attitude. Taylor, with much difficulty, forces Stephanie to apologize as well. Pleased, Miss B opens the door and allows them to leave. But as soon as this happens, Stephanie returns to her true self and starts insulting Miss B again. She thought she was safe now that she had the chance to escape, but she didn't realize that the one who gave her that chance could also take it away. She wasn't going to get forgiveness for repeating the same mistake over and over, especially when dealing with a witch. With a single gesture, Miss B locks the door again, and Stephanie realizes this time she won't escape. Miss B spares Taylor because there was still goodness in her, she could be redeemed. But not Stephanie. She was rotten to the core, there was no saving her. So Miss B does to her what should have been done long ago. She begins recording Stephanie on her phone, as if she's a prisoner, and when the recording is complete, she presses the stop button, and Stephanie vanishes, trapped forever in the video on her phone. Taylor is terrified, wondering if she's next, but Miss B does nothing to her. She opens the door and orders her to leave. During this process, she uses a phrase that sounds very familiar to Taylor because it's something Stephanie used to say, "Respect my space and get out of my face." But how did Miss B know? She wasn't even alive when Stephanie said that, and her spirit couldn't have been watching her then. The answer is revealed in the next scene when we see Miss B sending Stephanie's video to her granddaughter, who is none other than Adriana. This whole plan was devised by them after Miss B found out that Stephanie was troubling both her and her granddaughter. They had decided to deal with her, and before Miss B died, she had made all the necessary arrangements. She stole a clip of Stephanie and cast a spell on it, allowing her to enter the house later. The rest was handled by her son and Adriana, like sending messages and calls from Miss B's phone to Stephanie and Taylor, and even making noises at her house, forcing Stephanie to go there and take the clip home herself. Everything happened exactly as planned. They even planned to let Stephanie go if she admitted her mistake in the end, though they knew the chances were slim. Everything was carefully thought out. That's why Adriana sent them to her uncle, and Constantine gave them a protection herb that was actually used to summon a spirit, making it easier for Miss B's spirit to release itself from the bottle. After that, things went as expected. Stephanie unknowingly invited Miss B's spirit into her home and kept arguing to cover her mistake until the very end. As a result, Miss B did what should have been done a long time ago. Adriana, having deleted the message from Miss B's phone, took her revenge on Stephanie. Now Stephanie will never be able to trouble anyone again. Her story ends here. So friends, what do you think about this story? Do you think Stephanie deserved her fate, or do you think she could have redeemed herself? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more creepy stories. Until next time, stay safe and stay spooky.